everybody to our Walk in the Woods Holding a Walk narrative. We're going to try and run you through a quick PowerPoint that'll tell everything you need to know about how to do a walk in the woods. This is sponsored by Vermont Woodlands Association. We hope that you're a member. If you're not, the one way you can help us is to join. Our association relies extensively and importantly on membership. And if you're not a member, we would really appreciate your joining VWA. Okay. Any forest landowner with a forest management plan and a licensed Vermont forester or natural resource professional, and that could be a biologist, a geologist, an entomologist, a mycologist, can conduct a walk in the woods. VWA has found that holding a walk can not only enlighten the public and encourage their participation in good, sustainable forest ownership, but also educate the owner and provide potential new customers to participating foresters. Okay, Kathy. There we go. The theme. What will be the theme or the topic of your walk? And I should add, I didn't really explain it, but if you've got a question, hit chat, or probably, I can't see everybody because we're screen sharing, so probably just hit the chat and we'll do that as we go along. But what will be the theme or the topic of your walk? A traditional walk conducted by the forester highlights the nature of the forest, its ecology, plant life, and probably importantly, the management plan. You've got a management plan. That probably highlights some important things that you'd really want to bring out on a walk. Possibly the tree species, the management techniques, the owner's objectives, and other facets of the property. But that is only one theme. Others could include bird identification, animals present, animal tracking, what kind of scats laying on your trail, flora, fauna identification, insects, parcel history, geology, and other broad categories of natural resource assets. Time of the year is another consideration when you're trying to plan this. Classic walks are in the late spring after mud season, the summer, or the fall. Winter walks can be rewarding for snowshoeing and animal tracking, or even just walking if the trail is plowed or groomed. Time of the the route, walking most established trails. To spend a little time here, we're kind of assuming that you have elements or a significant amount of trail on your property that you can conduct the walk on. Old skidder trails are quite acceptable. A more good trail system is even better. Just walking through an unmanaged woods can be relatively difficult and quite time consuming, and it also can be a little bit dangerous for a public that may not be used to walking in the woods like that, although occasional forays off the trail are quite appropriate. Anyway, stay on the trail if you can, so the walkers can concentrate on the conversations that are going on, ask questions, and enjoy the walk. Note that the walk logically should develop from the theme. Length. With the large amount of conversation that usually takes place and the slow speed most walkers experience, trail length is not an important factor. Walk lengths well under a mile are common. A walk of 1 or 2 miles is average, and walk lengths rarely exceed 2 or 3 miles, and most take less than 2 or 3 hours. Okay, Kathy. Maybe the most important aspect of the planning, your forester. For your first walk on your property, your forester or a county forester is almost a requirement on the walk. Considering the time it takes away from the forester's working time and how busy the forester may be, this may be the most important critical coordination and scheduling item. Once you've had a walk, who you have along to assist will depend on what the theme and the topic of the walk is. And I would say that if you're going to ask your forester to be there to conduct most of the part of the walk where his expertise is needed, it's quite appropriate to volunteer to pay for his time during the walk. These foresters, every time they're out on a job, they're getting paid. And you're taking away from that if you're having your forester out there on your land explaining what's going on. Now, my guess is that a lot of foresters may volunteer some of their time for that walk, but it would be politically and etiquetely appropriate for you to volunteer to pay for his time if you're going to ask him to be there for that walk. Coordination with VWA or tree farm. In order for VWA or the tree farm program to assist in your scheduling, advertising, professional credits, and insurance, try to provide at least 2 or 3 months of notification in advance of the date of your desired walk or the desire to hold a walk. Okay, Kathy? Various walk considerations. For the management plan, we would suggest reviewing the plan for the proposed route and plan progress and activities. Discuss this with your forester. For other walk themes, consult which expert you invite along. Administration and logistics. Also consider weather constraints, seasonal influences like hunting season or the need for orange clothing associated with hunting season, because if you're out in a walk in the woods during deer season and you don't have orange on, you could really have a problem. The trailhead location, the location where you're starting the walk, parking, bathroom facilities, water, emergency services, and any need for support people to help with the walk. There might be a need for handouts or a map board. Is a map board needed for the forest and stand map to assist in the trailhead or to put it at the trailhead? That would make a lot of sense. It would help the forester explain what's going on, and it would help you too. A handout might be nice. Maybe you can make a small copy of that map so that they can carry it along and see where they are. Parking. Expect a mix of cars and pickup trucks with only 1 or 2 individuals per vehicle. You will need some space on firm, flat, dry ground for the parking, and you may need assistance in parking the vehicles. Usually a vehicle takes about 10 feet by 20 feet per vehicle. And if you've got a wide trail system, you can park them along the trail, or if you've got a clearing, you can park them there. But you're probably going to need some help if you're doing this with just your forester. Generally, when I have a walk here, I have one person who's holding the cars as they come up the driveway, and I'm helping the person in the car park where I want them to. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world is to get somebody in an expensive car to put it in the grass where you want them to be. So you have to kind of think about that. Maybe make sure the grass is cut where you're going to be parking so there aren't a lot of mysteries to the driver on where you're expecting him to put his car. Okay. Flyer. Actually, we've talked about flyers a little bit on our own today in our educational meeting. This is a really, really important document to get done so that it can be advertised and give you the information you need to conduct the walk. Providing information for an advertising flyer to VWA or Tree Farm greatly helps in VWA's successful promotion of the event and in securing insurance from the American Forest Foundation. All of our Tree Farm sponsored walks are eligible for insurance coverage, that's liability, by the American Forest Foundation and the American Tree Farm System with enough prior notification. Also, some walks may be eligible for continuing education credits from the Society of American Foresters for foresters or other professionals, and the flyer should mention if VWA has received permission for such credits. The information needed on that flyer would include the title, the registration requirements. A successful walk in Vermont averages perhaps 10 to 20 walkers. Numbers an owner and forester can manage and participants can appreciate. Requiring registration allows control of the number of participants and may include the advertisement of a cap on participant numbers. And if experience shows a larger interest than 20, you probably will need a second walk leader to handle the group. Let me take a drink here for a minute. We're going to need the date and the starting time on that flyer. Also the length of the event. You'll need detailed driving instructions to the parking and the trailhead. You also should provide route characteristics for potential attendees with handicap type issues. In other words, if you've got rough trails, steep grades, unpaved, a lot of corduroy or deep forest walking, you need to let the public know what they're going to be up against. These would not be handicapped equipped, and that needs to be in the flyer. Walk characteristics. What are you going to be looking at? Forestry, wildlife, rare and threatened endangered species, harvesting, history, geology, archaeology, trails, weather instructions for rain or shine. The charges, are we going to charge for this walk? Registration requirements, and any refreshments and water availability. Okay, Kathy. At the walk, at the introduction, you want to have a sign in at the walk. That's a little table with a piece of paper where you can get the people's names and hopefully enough information so that we can potentially contact them. If pre-registration was a requirement, there will be a sign in. Or is there a fee to be charged? Maybe some people are late fees if they haven't paid over the internet, or whatever the instructions were that we gave, that you gave to VWA or the Tree Farm people. At the walk, you're going to be doing introductions and a welcome. You're going to mention sponsors and any guests that are present. You'll cover housekeeping items like water, bathrooms, trail conditions, refreshments, and what to do in an emergency. And finally, the history of the parcel and the forest. Last slide. This is maybe the best thing for the landowner. Relax. You're going to let your forester do the talking. For traditional walks, especially if this is your first walk, let the forester run the walk, do all the talking and make explanations. This is really what sold me on how great walks are and what makes them fun, because once the forester really gets into it and starts explaining the silviculture and what you're looking at in the way of trees and how the harvest may have been conducted, all of the ecology and the information on the wildlife and the plants and the trees, it really just never ends. You just stand there and let the guy go or let the lady go. An incredible amount of useful information, lots of Q&A going on. You just can't lose if the forester runs that portion. Letting the forester conduct a walk is a sure way to make the experience a success. For other themes, let the experts do the talking. As a landowner, once you become more expert and experienced on your forest, you may be able to conduct a walk without assistance, but make sure you know what you're talking about. Okay, folks, that's it. Questions? You can go off mute now too.
Yeah, is there a form that we fill out to get the date down and what we're going to do? Or
that's a real good question. We've never actually put a form together, but we probably should. It would be a few blanks that would basically echo the presentation here, and that would give you a way to kind of formalize this in your mind so that you could put it together and give it to us. We will have this outline available for your use, and maybe the next thing we will do is come up with a form. That's a good idea, John.
So if we want to do one like in August, would I just email BWA and say we're doing it and go, or what are the?
That's another good question. We spent a couple of hours today on the education committee kind of finalizing, going over our schedule of events this summer. Not knowing exactly where you live, I would say I think the month of July is pretty open, but it would be good to nail down with VWA first what weekends are good weekends to do this for your region. We would hope not to have two walks literally within a few blocks of each other or a few miles of each other, when maybe by moving a weekend, we can spread out the good things here so that everybody can get a chance to go on both of them.
So
But I think there are
who's
plenty
the
of
coordinator?
opportunities this summer if you wanted to do one.
Who's the coordinator for this, I guess? My
Oh,
question.
another good question.
He's raising his hand.
Either that or trying to duck.
No, Alan Thompson is not raising his hand.
No, he's not. Why don't
I-
you send it? Why don't you send it to Kathy?
Send it to the tree, send it to either the Vermont VWA email or the tree farm email, either one of
Yeah,
those.
the info at. Send it to the
Yeah.
info at.
Yeah,
And copy Kathy though, so that we know. And if you can kind of figure on a weekend or a series of weekends that you like, that would be a good start, so we can see how that fits into our schedule. But
And,
this is really great, and I would say in the future we would want 2 or 3 months notice on a walk so that we can get it into our system.
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah. What kind of lead time? So you need 2 or 3 months lead time, essentially.
Yeah, we're probably trying to look at least a quarter to a half a year ahead.
Okay.
But on the other hand, there's a certain amount of work. I don't know that, if you're going to do it in July, that means that the grass will have quite a bit of time to grow. So if you're using logging trails and you mow them, that means that you're going to be opening yourself up to doing some mowing before the walk. And with the tick situation that we have, that's another thing. It's really, really good to get out there and do some mowing if you're in an area with a lot of ticks, so that the people don't have to put up with anything like that in
Right.
general, if you can get away with it.
I put the 2 emails in the chat box if everybody has their chat box open. Okay.
Okay, good.
More questions? Alan?
I have 2 questions. One will be maybe the harder one, and the other one's an easier one. But the first one is the value of your expert being a licensed forester. Landowners have a lot of reasons to work with non-licensed foresters or professionals who are coming to the table that aren't necessarily engaging in a forestry context. And so I just wonder what the opportunities for bringing experts to the table who aren't licensed foresters.
Well, we mentioned you may, if your theme is, say, something other than the actual forest environment, if it's flora and fauna, if it's flowers or other things like that, geology, you don't need necessarily a forester. You'll need somebody with that expertise, a good biologist. No reason not to have a walk in the woods for lack of a forester. I would say that if you're in current use, you're going to have a licensed forester.
We have laws that dictate how people can talk about forestry, but it'd be nice to be able just to keep the door open for folks to talk about the management of our forests and the management of our trees, especially a landowner or their trusted experts, that we can continue to do so with the community without necessarily requiring licensure as a part of that.
I totally agree.
I'm a licensed forester that's speaking on. The second question too is I wanted to prod a participant here. Andrew, Andrew, can you hear us? See if he can chime in. Andrew, you mind? I know Andrew is a Waterbury resident who's a very engaged landowner, somebody who I really enjoy working with, and who I think would be a really important person to have introduce himself and integrate into this community, because he really wants to bring and participate in bringing information about his forest into the community. You mind, Andrew, just introducing yourself and just saying a little bit about what you're doing in Waterbury?
Yeah, I can't say that I've had a lot of management practices happen already. But I do have third branch horse logging coming here on Tuesday to potentially do a hardwood harvest, because I think we discussed that the pines and spruces really do well on the site. And I have a lot of really mature pines. So after that initial harvest is done, I think that it could be good timing to show people that. And what I would focus on is talking about why pine trees and creating lumber is important. I don't think it would be that effective to go for a walk right now, and I haven't really cut anything besides doing an apple tree release.
Andrew, thanks. I'm very pleased to see you here, and I hope that you'll I hope to see more of you.
I'm taking my first leap class tomorrow morning, so horse and ecosystems should be interesting.
Good.
It sounds like you have the makings for a really nice walk once you get the horses in there and you do a little logging.
Yeah, I'm definitely pretty excited. And bringing this back to Alan, he said something about a walk for birds, and one right next to me is Faith Beeler's property, and hers is, she's not out there doing any management, whereas my property has more self-management. So maybe we could incorporate that into it eventually.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Kathy, keep Andrew on a short list of folks to be aware of.
Yes, I wrote his name down. I have little stars around it.
My pesticide exam is on May 5th. And the whole idea is to only advertise that I can do insecticide treatments on ash, because I don't think there's enough people doing that. But then if the tree is not healthy, I am very passionate about like a very carefully done coppice cut, and then I fence it. So currently looking at building that business, but we'll see.
Are you going for the amateur license for doing insecticides or professional?
I didn't know that there was two levels.
Well, there's a landowner level that you can get that allows you to do ash treatments on your own. But if you're going to do them on somebody else's property, you need a professional license.
I think I'm going after the professional license. I'm taking
Okay.
the exam, and then I'm going to be getting insurance to be able to work on other people's property. For some
Okay.
reason, I think I could stay busy working on my own land for a while, but when you get paid to go work on someone else's land, that seems more appealing for some reason. There's
Are
no
you-
deadline for me working here, but
Are you going to be doing injection treatments on ash?
yeah, and I contacted Friends of the Waterbury Reservoir, and they have not responded. I think there was still land trust that was looped in on that. And so there's a lot of ash trees on the state land surrounding the reservoir. And so I was thinking that maybe there could be a grant of some sort. And I also know that I'm inexperienced, so that's why I applied to work with Third Branch Horse Logging. I applied to work with, trying to think of his name. There's a guy that does manual invasive removals, because if you wanted to say that you were going to use herbicides all around the reservoir, I think people have a reason to be alarmed about that. So yeah, whereas this guy, all he does is manual removement. So I want to learn everything that he knows. And we'll see if anyone responds.
Well, if you
I
get
think
your license and some experience, I may hire you myself. I'm planning on doing a little bit of injection work on my ash when the borer gets down here. I'm not going to do them all, but I'm going to do maybe 10.
Yeah, you
And
picked the 10 best ones for it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Right.
we've already sexed them, and I know which ones are female and which are male. And I'm just waiting to find out when the map shows that it's real close to Sheffield. I'm in a sweet spot right now in Sheffield. There's nothing around here, but that's getting to be hard to find in Vermont.
yeah, and I watched that map and it's a little
Yeah.
scary because it looks like the edge of it is on Mount Hunger. So it's very close to here.
Alan, have you been on any properties with EAB on them?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
There's been
me
plenty of properties where you look at it and you think, oof, close. Hey, having the floor, Andrew, you referred to somebody who does a lot of manual invasive treatment. I think somebody else on this call knows a little bit about that.
Oh, Mike Balls is his
Right.
name. Oh,
Yeah, he's the man. Jerry's the guy.
okay.
Jerry, I was hoping Jerry would speak up a little bit.
Well, I don't like to use my arm muscles too much. You know, I use a I use a Kubota tractor with a root rake and a shredder, and then I have a mechanic on regular call too.
Oh
So
my goodness.
a lot of repairs.
Yeah. A tractor is definitely on the list because it makes that type of work a lot easier.
I had a question about the injections. I'm wondering, woodpeckers tend to blonde trees with EAB, and I'm wondering, does insecticide have any effect on woodpeckers that might be eating toxic EAB?
That's a good question. The injection treatments last 3 years. And the environmental community pretty much is recommending injections over the drenches or anything else because it's the least amount of insecticide that is exposed to the environment. But I suppose if you're a woodpecker and you happen to pick the little devil that's just sucked up a bunch of that juice in the tree,
Yeah.
then he got a dose of it. I don't know how we could avoid that unless they don't eat dead bugs. I don't know. That's a
I would-
They won't
we need a
be able
PhD to study
find
that.
them as
What?
easy. They won't.
What?
They won't be able to find them as easy. A lot of the searching that happens is woodpecker searching is through sound and scent.
Yeah,
So there will be a reduced ability for the woodpecker to find a dead larva, but it's going to happen. And
Well,
yeah,
Alan,
and-
you're right. Alan's right about one thing.
Yeah.
No smart woodpecker's going to be pecking on a tree that's sound. They're going to go after the ones that are infested, and those
Right.
don't have the treatment. So more than likely, if he's pecking on a tree, it hasn't been treated, he's okay. And the trees that are treated, he won't be pecking on, at least probably not. Why would he peck on that if there's another one 50 feet away that's dying and probably has a lot of bugs in it?
yeah, I'm not sure I would
Fingers
inject a tree that's blonding already either.
That's I
You're
wrote
right.
an article on this a couple of years ago. It was in VWA's newsletter. But one of the things that the experts say is that you really have to be careful in selecting the trees to be injected. And blonding is one of the giveaways that you don't want to treat one of those trees. You want a tree that's completely intact, that has a good root structure, that has no dieback, that's straight and true, and has no rot on it, because the rot or the wounds on a tree attract the bug. You're looking for the perfect tree, and those are the ones you treat. It's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. Any other questions? Wow.
Well, I think the key is getting a form together, Al. that
Yeah, that's a good
somebody can-
idea.
Somebody can fill out and submit right to the info@vermontwoodlands.org email, and somebody who's interested in doing a workshop can just do it that way, and then work with Stephanie or whoever is handling those. this
I
point.
will I'm taking my computer to Asheville. I'll see what I can do when I'm down there with that. That's a good rainy day kind of project.
It's simple, name, address, tree farm or not, and what the goal of the walk is, and months you would like to have it in or something like that. It doesn't have to be much.
Okay.
Al, if, do you have the slides available that you showed tonight for a checklist to look at and start thinking about this?
We have the outline, and I'm going to be sending it to info at Vermont Woodlands. So if you send an email to info at Vermont Woodlands asking for a copy of the primer outline, they'll send it to you. And if I can find your email, I'll send it to you tonight.
Okay.
I should be able to find your email because you're on the plaque, and I think I've got that listing separate.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for being here tonight.
Okay.
Very
Thanks
good.
all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, there it is. Leave.
Good night.